Let's talk about a very important skill that you need to show in your essay. You need to name your experts or your sources that you reference in your evidence. So your first question might be, what exactly is an expert? An expert is anyone who has a lot of training, education, or experience with something. So teachers are experts at how brains learn, and farmers are experts at growing healthy crops. My grandma is an expert at baking bread. My daughter wants to be, but is not yet. It's all relative. You don't have to be the president or a gold medalist or the highest ranking official to have something important to say. You do need to know your stuff, though. So who are some of the experts that we heard from about this topic of the Olympics? First and foremost, we heard a lot from the IOC, or the International Olympic Committee. Other Olympic entities that we heard from were the Olympic Charter. That's their formal document describing the rules and regulations for operating the Olympics. We also heard from Kirsty Coventry, the current chair of the IOC, Thomas Bach, the former president of the IOC. We heard from the Paralympic Committee and the United States Olympic Committee. We also heard from several media sources, including Verify News, ABC News, Business Insider, and New York Times. I might be missing some here. We also sort of heard from athletes who have tried to demonstrate in the past. Tommie Smith, John Carlos, Gwen Berry. There are more, of course. And political figures or groups. From President Joe Biden, we talked about China, Russia, and Belarus, and Ukraine. When you go to name your experts or sources in your paper, you need to be very specific and you have to use their full names. You need to explain who someone is. This helps us know why they are an expert on the topic. So on the left, we have "don't do this," which are examples I've seen in student papers, and on the right, we have how you would fix it up. Don't say "source 2 shares." We don't know what source 2 is. Assume your audience has no clue. So instead you want to say something like, "in the video Rescued and Seized, they share." Don't say "Robert Blair says." I'm going to wonder as your audience, who is this Robert Blair and why should I care what he has to say about anything? For all I know, he might be some kid you met on the bus. Instead say, "Robert Blair, a farmer from Idaho, says," and suddenly I understand why he would be considered an expert on the topic of using drones for farming. Don't say "a professor describes." Instead, help me understand why that professor is important. I don't want to hear from a professor on physics if my topic is artifacts and anthropology. I want to know that this is a professor from Nigeria who has something to say about the Benin bronzes. A Vox Video shows is not as specific as the Vox Video Rescued and Seized shows. And it's incorrect to say Britain reports because Britain is a whole country filled with millions of people. Instead, be more specific and say the British Museum reports or the British government reports. So please be very specific in naming your experts and sources.